If you're not doing these things ahead of FPL double game week 32, of course, Crystal Palace and Newcastle do have a double game week. You need to be doing these things ahead of this game week, so then you are the best prepared to get yourselves a green arrow. And then looking at other teams as well that we need to be targeting in game week 32 and ahead of them double game week 33 fixture, what we're going to be doing, what our transfer plans are, and what the best strategy is going forward in FPL ahead of these next few game weeks. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here, it'll be very greatly appreciated. And as you can see, I've got on screen here just some of the teams that we're targeting over the next few weeks. So of course we've got Newcastle in double game week 32, some very good players from there. We've got Isak, Gordon, Murphy, Burn, Livramento, Pope. There's a lot of good options from Newcastle. We're going to be discussing the best options for the teams in double game week 32. Of course, then we've got Crystal Palace that have got back-to-back double game weeks. You got Mateta who scored today, Munoz who also scored today, Saka unfortunately didn't do anything, and then Eberici Eze, of course, getting a 9-pointer. Very impressive there. Crystal Palace assets did impress very much so in game week 31. In the lead up to game week 32, of course, Munoz getting an 8-pointer, getting himself a goal. He is so good going forward. I know Crystal Palace's double is quite difficult, but saying that, Munoz can literally score a goal against anyone, to be honest. He's very good going forward. And Palace defensively aren't that bad at all as well. Mateta did get himself a goal as well. Ismail Sarr, the one Crystal Palace player to blank out of the ones that most people own. It's between Sarr and Eze. I personally, as you can see in my team, went for Ismail Sarr. Eze is the one that ended up getting 2 assists and 9 points. Ismail Sarr just sat there with a 2-pointer. Not ideal for me when you see Bruno Fernandes sat on my bench. I was really debating Sarr or Bruno Fernandes. I went for Sarr in the end just based on the fact that Sarr's going to be a lot more owned than Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, he's over double the amount owned this week, as you can see. I went for Ismail Sarr. If I didn't take ownership into consideration, I probably would have gone for Bruno, but the way that I've been playing this season is about ownership and trying to preserve the ranks. I'm quite happy where I am. I'm up to 42,000, which is decent enough. I was obviously like 25,000 at one point, but we're still doing pretty decent. Hopefully we can continue and get a green arrow this week. But we now know the focus this week now is on Newcastle and Crystal Palace assets. They'll be getting all the talk and all the attention this week. As you can see from the screenshot, there's Kieran Trippier as well. You can also go for, but he's someone if you really want to attack a double game week. The safer options being, of course, Dan Burn and then Livramento at the back. And you can also go for a Nick Pope in goal. Jacob Murphy in midfield is going to be very popular this week. 40% owned this week. So he's going to be very heavily owned for this double game week. A lot of people are going to be using him. And then as well as that, Alexander Isak. We'll discuss captaincy in a second with Alexander Isak. Crystal Palace's double, as I say, is a little bit more difficult coming against Man City away and Newcastle away. And when you look at the injuries and the suspensions and that, which we'll get into in a second, doesn't look ideal for Crystal Palace there. Newcastle do have a bit of more of a favourable double against Man United and Crystal Palace. Of course, they play each other. Pretty decent double there for Newcastle, you'd say so. Isak for me is quite clearly the standout captain option. Here are some of my early game week 32 thoughts going into it. So, as I say, the Crystal Palace game was absolute carnage against Brighton. 3 red cards in the end, 1 for Brighton and 2 for Crystal Palace. So, the players that got suspended were Guehi and Nketiah. Guehi got straight red cards, he's out for 3 games. I think Nketiah is only out for 1 game. I think Nketiah got 2 bookings. So, it does boost Mateta's minutes. That's the positive in terms of Nketiah. Nketiah, obviously, he's a player that can take minutes off Mateta. So in the first game, you'd expect that Mateta should really be getting 90 minutes, which is ideal. It just makes him a little bit more nailed and a little bit better of an FPL asset. Now, of course, Guehi then getting suspended. He's Crystal Palace is probably there. I mean, the Crystal Palace have got a very strong defence in general. Lacroix and Guehi have been so good this season. Lacroix actually went off with what could be a concussion. So we could be looking at it with Mark Guehi out for Crystal Palace, Lacroix out for Crystal Palace, which is 2 very important players for Palace in terms of the way they defend for Daniel Munoz, and also as well as that the way they attack as well. Obviously, they're very good on the ball, and as well as that, Crystal Palace might have to be a bit more kind of pragmatic in the way that they play without Lacroix and Guehi, so it could definitely affect them going forward as well, which isn't ideal. And as I say, 2 difficult fixtures in game week 32 in the double game week isn't an ideal time to be getting some of your key players suspended. So definitely something to keep an eye on. We'll keep an eye on the Lacroix situation. Guehi is definitely out for this game week, so it's an absolute shocker for that. As I say, Palace will not be as strong as what we were hoping they would be in game week 32. But the good thing is that Munoz is so good going forward. As I say, Brighton did concede a goal against Brighton, but Munoz still came in with an 8-pointer because he bags himself a goal. And he is so good going forward and gets himself into such dangerous positions. He's great against anyone. To be honest, even though he's got a difficult double game week against Man City and Newcastle, I'm still so happy to own him, and I still do back him to potentially get at least an attack and return. And you never know, Crystal Palace could also keep a clean sheet in one of them 2 games as well. I'm expecting something from Munoz in at least one of them 2 games, whether it's a clean sheet or whether it's an attacking contribution, because as I say, he is so good going forward. As from a Newcastle perspective, Newcastle do definitely have the more favourable double game week against Man United, and as well as that, Morgan Rogers has just scored. I'm watching the game, so another goal for Morgan Rogers in FPL. This guy is an absolute joke, genuinely. I should have picked him in my FPL team, absolutely fuming at that. But yeah, as I said, Newcastle are a favourable double then against Man United and Crystal Palace. Could it be a chance for isak triple captain? If you still have your triple captaincy available to you, could that be an option? I personally think it would. If I had my triple captain and I wasn't playing any of the chips, I'd definitely be considering this isak one. You've also got, obviously, next week as well, where you've got Omar Marmoush you could go for on the double game week. There's also Bukayo Saka as well that you could go for on the double game week 33. But as the isak against United and Crystal Palace could be a very good double game week triple captain right there. And you look at it as well, isak will have to see if he's fit or not for the game on Monday night. Obviously, we'll know by the time it gets to Monday night. If he's fit and firing, he's absolutely fine to go in game week 32, and I can see him doing very well. Now, defensively, a lot of people have asked the question, who's a better option, Dan Burn or Livramento? I personally do actually prefer Livramento. I've got Dan Burn in my team, but I do like Dan Burn for that set piece and attacking threat. Livramento obviously is a bit more, he's a bit more consistent in getting forward, given the fact he's actually a fullback compared to Dan Burn who's playing centrally. But obviously from the set pieces, Dan Burn is a very good option in that regard. But I think it's very close between the two. There's not a lot between them. I personally gone for Dan Burn in my team, but honestly, I think looking at it now, maybe go for Livramento. Dan Burn is actually on 8 yellow cards as well to note. Of course, a lot of people may be using their bench boost going forward in game week 32 as well. So if that's you, then that is fair enough. I mean, if you wildcard in game week 31, then it definitely makes sense to bench boost in 32. For me, I've already got Gabriel. I could get rid of Gabriel and then maybe bench boost, but for me, I'm going to wait till game week 33 personally. So if you wanted to use a triple captain on each side, I think that's a good decision. You can also use your bench boost as well, depending on how strong your bench looks. My bench will have probably Bruno Fernandes against Newcastle, Conser against Southampton, Ariel against Liverpool, then Gabriel is injured against Brentford. So it's not a bad looking bench if I did get rid of Gabriel, to be fair. Bruno against Newcastle is not too bad. Conser against Southampton, Areola against Liverpool isn't ideal at all. But the way that I'm setting up the team is with my 3 Newcastle players in Dan Burn, Jacob Murphy, and then Alexander Isak. Of course, for me, he is going to be my captain. And Aston Villa have literally just scored again. Marlon's just scored. Now, what is going on in this Aston Villa game? I wonder who got the assist for that one. But yeah, so then you got double game week 32 for Crystal Palace assets. I've gone for Mateta. I'm hoping Ismail Assar does pull things back with how much Eze's obviously gone ahead of him. So for me, Ismail Assar has got to perform in this double game week, and he's got to at least get a contribution to outperform Eze. And then as well as that, Daniel Munoz, of course, as I said before, I'm very happy to own him going into that game week. And then some ideal fixtures in game week 32. Of course, Bukayo Saka didn't start the game against Everton, so it's ideal for Cole Palmer. And hopefully Cole Palmer can continue getting the 90 minutes and Saka continues not to start. That'll be ideal. Got nice fixture there with Cole Palmer against Ipswich. Then you got Mohamed Salah against West Ham. Very happy to have him ahead of that game. Marmoush against Crystal Palace. Very, very nice right there. Gabriel also against Palace and then Raya against Brentford. So I've got 6 double game weekers with some nice fixtures around that. Obviously Bruno Fernandes on the bench, which isn't ideal. Of course, it's on my bench this week as well. But yeah, as I say, very nice looking team, I think, going into next game week. I've got high hopes for game week 32. Hopefully it does go well. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new on here. It'd be very greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.